Hi everyone, and welcome to another monthly edition of the Zoopla UK House Price Report. Now this takes us right the way through 2021, so as you can see at the top right hand corner here, we've got this report going right the way through till December 2021, published last week. Now of course if you want regular updates with what we do and what's happening, please click the subscribe button. We appreciate all your views, all your subscriptions, so just hit that subscribe button now and you'll be notified of everything we've got up and coming, because we've got a bumper year coming up. So look, without further ado, let's head into what the UK house prices did last year. It's pretty much the same, guys. We've got, again, an increase here on average of 7.4% that you can see. The reality is that there were cities that did a lot better than that. There were cities that did worse, but the average was 7.4%. We're going to come on to the cities that actually excelled and beat that in a bit. The demand for homes was nearly up 50%. Again, the reality is the same period from 2018 to 2021, we've seen a 50% increase in demand for homes. Now there's a multitude of factors. COVID has had an impact, the way people start to view properties. And again, a lot of people are saying that there's this demand for just space. We've said it in previous videos. It isn't just space. You have people that demand for space. So families who are in an apartment, they will demand space. But people who are living at home with mum and dad, they would just want to get out and maybe want to get back into the city centres. So we're seeing flats in the city centres increase in prices as well. So the reality is although we've seen a big increase in demand for properties, the flow of supply has been restricted. Now that's easing up a little bit, but we're still 15% down in terms of the flow of supply, what it was. Two main reasons for that is we're still playing catch up from COVID when the construction industry closed effectively for a number of months. Then even when it did reopen, it was a slower rate. But secondly, the prices of goods, timber, metal, plasterboard, plaster, cement, everything like that, it has increased dramatically. So people are actually putting off the builds. There are developers out there, if their margin was 15-16% profit initially, and their margin is now 4 or 5%, there's not much room for manoeuvre. So the reality is they've just delayed, or they're putting off the build for another day when the prices actually come back down. So as you can see, the executive summary here, overall, we've got house prices rose by 7.4%. In 2020, they actually rose by 4.2%. So the reality is if you held property over the last decade, and we've been, really pushing Liverpool and Manchester for the last sort of 8 to 10 years, you have seen a dramatic increase in your property price and a dramatic growth you've had without a shadow of a doubt. So we've seen 7.4%, as I say, add on to that what we did last year, or 2020, I should say, 4.2%. And Wales has continued to lead the way. Again, the reason why we haven't recommended places like Wales or Scotland or secondary cities is because we know that at some point there's going to be a downturn. And most people can recommend an investment vehicle in an upturn, whether that's stocks and shares or whether that's property. Most people can recommend something great in an upturn because everything's going up. But it's what things do in a downturn that I'm more interested in. So if we can have stability in the downturn, then that's key for me, and that's why I'm still looking at cities like Manchester, Liverpool. I feel that, especially Manchester, I feel that in a downturn it has a lot more stability due to the demographic than places on the coast or places like Wales. So that's hence why we're still looking at Manchester. You've got demand surged over the new year. We said this in a previous video. This is simply due to people gathering around Christmas tables and parties over New Year and things like that, when actually the reality is they realise their home's not big enough, or they go to someone else's home and they get envy, and then they go and get on Rightmove. So we start to see a big piece of demand there, and people want to get in before the spring rush. So there's going to be a big rush in typically end of March, beginning of April. So people start to get in before that. So we saw a big surge at the start of this year. And again, you've got here levels of buyer demand have reached new highs for family houses and flats in the first week of 2022. So I agree with this statement here. Price growth will moderate throughout the year amid increasing economic headwinds. What it means by economic headwinds is typically your interest rate rises and inflation. So price growth will actually moderate. By moderate, I don't think we're going to see a fall, but I do think that we're going to come back down to anywhere between sort of the 4.5%, 5% on average, give or take. Some cities will be slightly lower, some slightly higher. But on average, as I say, I don't think we're going to make that 7.4%, but we've still got room to improve. And you can see here the overall chart. You've got demand up 49%, You've got 15% new home supplies and minus 46% of stock for homes for sale. So this goes hand in hand with a report that was published just over a week ago, where on average each branch has 12 properties for sale. That's it. Now that's more the residential market. We deal with the investment market, so we've got a lot more than that. But on average, you've got 12 properties for sale. So it's pretty tough for your traditional estate agent out there. And as you can see here, over sort of 2017, right the way through till 2021, it's grown consistently. A lot of people think that this part here is a dip. It's not. It's still increasing 1%. But as you can see, year on year, in terms of 2017 to 2018, we were around 4% increase. Then it was 3% increase, 1% increase, increasing back to 4% increase, and then 7% increase. So you're still looking over that period over 20% increase, which is a phenomenal rise. And of course, on top of that, you've got your income added to that year on year as well. So if you've got a 5-6% year income over 4 or 5 years of 20-25% plus over 20% of growth, you've made nearly 50% over the past 4 or 5 years, which is a huge amount. And there's not many investment vehicles that are doing that at the moment. So that's why we still feel that property is the way forward. And you can see here, Liverpool and Manchester led the way in terms of the house price growth in the UK's largest cities. And that's why we feel more confident with these particular cities, because they are the UK largest cities, obviously behind London and slightly behind Birmingham. But the reality is, I only want to advise people on the UK largest cities, because that's when I feel that you've got more protection moving forward if we do see a dip in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whenever that may come. So look, the reality is that we saw Liverpool lead the way over 10%, Manchester 8.7%. There were secondary cities, as you can see here, Oldham and Rochdale, also registering more than growth of 11%. But for me, as I say, it's all about the Liverpool, the Manchester and those major UK cities. As we then start to head down, you've got demand rises for all property types, whereas at the start of last year, or as we sort of started to get into the spring, it was mainly room space. People wanted the search for space, as you can see here, but that was family homes. What it didn't take into consideration is a lot of people felt that the flats fell in price. They didn't. Flats on the outskirts, in the suburbs, yes, they didn't have as much demand, but there was still huge demand for city centre flats, because the reality is people who had been living at home, especially that younger demographic, the 24, 25, 26 year olds who have been at home, they wanted to get back into the city, they wanted to get back into the community where they've got friends, they wanted to get out, they wanted to have that social life, whether it be bars, cafes, restaurants, whatever it may be. So we saw a huge demand for city centre apartments. And of course, you've got here, in terms of the buyer demand bounce back, because we had people getting back to work. The reality is people got back to work. They had a number of months off, and we're still seeing now. We're based in Canary Wharf. We came back on the 4th, 5th of January, and it was dead. It was still pretty much dead that week. Roads are empty, but we've now started to see it pick up. In terms of last week, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but we're actually queuing for coffees, whereas before you walked in, you got your coffee and you walked out. Now you have a 5-10 minute wait to get a coffee. The queue's going outside the door. So we know that Canary Wharf has bounced back, and that's going to take place over the majority of cities over the next sort of 6 to 12 months. But overall, as I say, we've got demand coming in for all types of properties, whether it's flats or houses. You can see that spike to the right hand side of the graph just there. And again, we've got supply levels starting to turn. So I don't think we're going to get back to the supply this year of where we were a few years back. And I really believe that although that the COVID construction lockdown will actually start to turn, and I think that we will get that out of our system. The reality is the cost of building these properties. I still think that's going to be a major stumbling block for supply levels to get back to where they were. So I still think demand is going to easily outweigh supply. But it is getting slightly better. And then, of course, we come down to the mortgage rates. Now, this is where people think there's going to be economic headwinds. But the Zoopla report summarises exactly what we've been saying all along here. The reality is that although that you've got an increase in the interest rates, it is still pretty much at an all-time low. So you've got here, it's worth placing this in a longer run context. As we look at this over, the last 20 years, mortgage rates are still at unbelievably low levels. So if you're talking of mortgage rates or the base rate, it's at 0.25 or 0.5%, The reality is the base rate back in 2008 was sort of like 4.5%, 5.5%. So what we've got to do is take this into the wider context. Although that we're seeing increases in that base rate, we're nowhere near what we were back in 2008 times. And then we sort of head down to this chart that you've probably seen time and time again on our monthly reports. It is still the same top 10 pretty much. So Liverpool and Manchester lead the way, followed by Nottingham, Sheffield, Leicester, Bournemouth. But again, these are the cities we're recommending. We've got great options in Manchester at the moment where we've got great discounts. That's where the developer's got a really low value or low cost property, really cheap property at the start. So they've not tried to rip it off at the end. They're not trying to maximise huge amounts of gains. They've just said, you know what, let's get it sold. And we've sold sort of 75 to 80 units of that within the last 6 weeks. So we know that this is a great priced development, and that's why, and we know Manchester can stand that. So overall, guys, 2021's done. 2022 looks great. Is it going to be as fantastic growth as 2021? It's not, but will we still have a solid growth? 100%. I still think that we've got that, as I say, 4-5% solid growth, increases in a bit more on that in some cities, and of course on top of that you get your income. So look, guys, it's 2022. Let's have a great one, and please subscribe to this. As I say, it really helps us, and it really helps you guys because you can see everything that's coming up over the next 12 months. So have a great rest of the week and a great month. Take care.